Welcome to the Craftsman interview. I'm here with Brian Grano and Greg Browne from Mickey Finn's Brewery in downtown Libertyville. And let's just jump right into it, guys. How did you guys get together and start? How long have you been working together? And how did you meet?
Well, I've had Mickey Finn's since June of 2004, so we're going on 11 years. And literally, I think 2 weeks into the ownership change, I got a call from the brewer at the time saying that he had changed his mind and he wanted to go back to Abbott and he was going to leave. So here's a guy with no restaurant experience, no brewery experience, that just took this huge undertaking. And the brewer that we thought we had decided to give us 2 weeks notice, which isn't a long time in the brewing world.
Yeah.
So luckily, Bill Sugars, who I purchased the business from, had known Greg from.
Well, I lived in Highland Park, so I would come to Mickey Finn's because it was always one of my favorite brew pubs. So I was just a customer, so he knew me from that, but I was a brewer at the time at another brewery.
Okay.
So Bill kind of reached out to Greg, and then Greg came in, and we had 2 quick conversations, and a week later we were trying to figure out what to do in the brewery. Because every brewery's different. I mean, just because you can brew one place doesn't necessarily mean that this equipment's going to be an easy changeover. And it wasn't impossible, but certainly the first couple weeks were a challenge for all of us.
Wow. And so you hit the ground running with Greg. And Greg, where are you from?
I'm from Australia originally.
Okay. How long have you been in the States?
23 years now.
Okay. And what brewery? You were at a microbrewery or a?
I was
brew
at
pub?
prior to Mickey Finn's, I was at a brew pub, a new brew pub out in South Barrington.
Okay.
And I kind of helped them get started, but it was a long drive for me. Like I said, I live in Highland Park. It was a long drive to South Barrington. And there really wasn't a lot happening there, so it was a perfect situation. And I'd always loved Mickey Finn's. I mean, it was the premier brew pub, certainly in the suburbs and back, in the 90s in the whole state. So when I got that call, I was like, this is perfect.
Amen. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And then I ended up moving to Mundelein so I'd be closer, so it worked out even better.
How long have you been brewing beer then? Were you doing that back home in Australia?
No, I kind of came here and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I started home brewing. And then fortunately for me, there's a brewing school in Chicago called the Siebel Institute,
Yes.
which a lot of people go through now. And that was close to me, and I thought, well, this would work out. So.
Well, you spent a little time at Goose Island.
Yeah, so after Siebel, worked at a couple of different breweries, and then Goose Island just opened up the big production facility on Fulton Street, and they were looking for guys to come in.
Okay.
So kind of started out there, and that was a whole nother step up.
Did you see this whole craft beer movement coming? You obviously had some vision for the beer part of it prior to purchasing it, I'm sure. How much did that play into it?
A lot, because the way that the business model is set up, beer is a significant portion of what we do and how we make money. And I think in 2004, there had been a rise in the 90s of breweries, and it kind of got overbuilt and oversaturated. And then with 9/11 and kind of this recession after that, it kind of took a dip. But I think we all knew that in the long run, the trend of microbrew beers was going up. Imports were kind of going down, and domestics were flat. So the growth was going to be in craft beers, kind of like what happened with wine in the late 70s, early 80s, where you
Right.
went from ordering a Burgundy and a Blanc to actually calling out the grape and pairing certain wines with certain meals. That's exactly what was happening with beer, and it kind of got overgrown in the 90s. People looked at it as a reason to make a restaurant. Instead of, you kind of need everything for it to work. The beer's got to work, the restaurant's got to work, the atmosphere's got to work, the customer service has to work.
Right. So, Greg, do you have who's doing brewing right from your perspective? There's a lot of breweries out there. Do you feel like it's at a saturation point with all the growth that's happening in craft beer, or is there room for more? What are your thoughts?
I think there's room for more, and to be honest, I can't keep up. So there's someone will mention the name of a brewery, and I've never heard of them, and I've been brewing in Chicago for 15 years, and it was a desert for a long time here. It was, frankly, Chicago was embarrassing compared to the rest of the country as far as craft beer goes. And now we're like one of the premier cities in the country for craft beer. So I had no idea it would explode like this. So I don't think it. I mean, look at Lake County. How many brew pubs are there in Lake County? And there's room for a lot more breweries in Lake County.
Yeah, and the way I feel about it, there's room for local beer and local breweries. Lake County is really underserved. We're the oldest and now newest brewery in Lake County. There's room for way more. There's basically only 3 up here right now. But I feel like in terms of distribution, we're getting pretty close to a saturation point. There's only so much space on a liquor store shelf. And there's so much great beer out there already. At some point, how do you get your beer out there? What differentiates you from the next guy? You're both great. You both have goofy looking microbrew packaging.
Right. It's pretty crowded.
But from a fresh brew standpoint, it's great to have a local brewery, and you could have different themes, you could have different styles.
Do you have a favorite style, and is there anything coming up down the pike with Mickey Finn's? Any new handles coming?
Yeah, we're always putting on different seasonals. So we have St. Patrick's Day coming up, so we're doing an Irish Red, doing the Irish Stout again, and Doppelbock. Even though it's a German style, it's kind of morphed into this St. Patrick's Day tradition for us.
Okay.
So did Doppelbock, which is a lager, so I had to get into lager yeast for that. And then I don't really have a favorite. It kind of depends on the time of year. I mean, my go-to beer is sort of like a German Pilsner.
Okay.
Which is what we'll be brewing in a couple of weeks too, our Valkyrie Pils. And we just did a Yorkshire style bitter, like a Northern English style bitter. Because we sort of, at the old place we had the hand pumps, and we're going to get those started up again here, which is sort of the traditional English manner of serving ale. So we'll get that program going again.
There's a lot happening here.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at how many taps we have. So we can have, a lot, I think, with guest taps, we can have 16 different beers here. So, and that's what people want now. They don't want to walk in. It used to be you had 5 beers, sort of a blonde, a red, and a black, and that was it. And now people want variety. People are much more educated about beer.
Right.
So you can't just have one IPA, you've got to have 3 IPAs.
So you guys have mentioned the 21st anniversary of Mickey Finn's. Obviously last year during your 20th anniversary, you're making this huge move.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over the 20th year.
Tell us a little bit about what's happening this year and special events, special beers. What's on your mind as it relates to your 21st anniversary? Congratulations, by the way. That's a hell of a run.
Yeah.
And cheers to many more. But tell us a little bit about the 21st anniversary.
Well, I'll just say first off, in 1994, Pat Umquist and Bill Sugars took a huge leap when they bought that small tavern and bought the land next door and built the brewery, the beer garden, the event room, a larger kitchen. Because really those guys had no idea at the time what was going to happen. They were really on the forefront, the cutting edge of breweries in the Chicago area, period.
Yeah.
But then those guys didn't have any restaurant experience to speak of. And Libertyville was nowhere near the vibrant, relevant town that it is now.
Right.
So they were kind of the forefathers of what ended up happening over the next 20 years. So fast forward, I purchased Mickey Finn's in 2004. We're now in 2014, 15. So we moved in 14, kind of missed our 20th anniversary because, we were moving and getting
Obvious
set up.
reasons, yeah.
So I thought it'd be really cool this year to celebrate. Mickey Finn's finally turns 21. And we've got events musically, food-wise, and beer-wise, really for the whole year. And we're just really excited. We're really excited.
What can you shed some light on some of the food and some of the beer?
Well, actually, Greg can talk about our anniversary beer.
The beer, I've had this idea for a while now to brew a beer using locally grown hops, because occasionally I have customers telling me I grow hops in my backyard. Can you use them? And generally I can't, because I need more than like your pound.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, well, it'd be cool to kind of use these hops somehow. So I thought, what if we brewed a beer and we could kind of put the word out on Facebook and say, just bring in your hops on the day of the brew. We'll use them in the brew if we have enough hops together. we can include
That's
them.
an awesome idea.
Yeah.
And, and even if you're not in Lake County, we can probably make a small exception for you, I don't know. And then, we use the hops on that day, and then when the beer is ready, you come in and try it. I just think it includes more people than just,
True community
yeah,
effort.
exactly.
Well, yeah, we owe our success to everybody. We can't do it ourselves. It's
Right.
So it kind of takes the people who really and truly love beer to the point where they're growing their own hops
Right.
and going, we're going to include you on our anniversary beer because we couldn't have got here without you.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Do you have a name for it, or are you waiting
I'm
to
gonna
see
call
how
it,
it shakes out?
I have a name, I don't have a style, so I'm going to call it Lake County Harvest.
Nice.
I'm still trying to work on what would be the best suited style of beer to have like a myriad of different hop varieties.
Okay.
Because I have no control over what type of hops they're bringing in.
True.
So it's going to be a little bit of a mishmash, but it'll be good.
That's great. And how about on the food side? Any special dishes or anything you want to mention?
Well,
Or
we're
should we just wait for the surprise?
No, I mean, I think it's safe to say that like smoked meats are really popular right now. So we're pretty proud to say that now that we're all up and running on our brisket and our smoked ribs and our pulled pork, and our kitchen has done a really great job. But every 4 or 5 months we redo our menu and we just try to stay interesting and including trends like gluten free, which a year ago I didn't really know anything about, and
Right.
now we've got some pretty great alternatives for people.
Right.
But yeah, just keep it interesting and true to the pub style, freshly prepared, affordable, yummy.
Yummy. Yeah, good. All right. Tell us a little bit about the journey from across the street. I mean, what did you learn? How much time do we have, right? What were there any ahas?
Well, I think
to
the-
speak of?
I think the
tell
main-
us some stories.
Well, the main thing is, I think if I did it again, I would never tell people when the brewery was going to be open because it is such a ginormous undertaking. It's not as simple as just moving the tanks to a new room and then firing up the kettle and the fermenter and the mash tun. I run a restaurant, so I do marketing. I do office management. I deal with
Yeah.
events. The future planning. And Greg brews beer. I mean, we're not engineers. We're not project engineers. And
You are now.
I
Yeah.
think if we did it again, we'd probably bring more people into the fold that's their expertise is moving breweries. But part of the problem is, like Greg alluded to, there are so many breweries being built right now that it's hard to find qualified people because there's only so many companies that can do this.
Okay.
And if you've got a dozen breweries under contract, it's like, yeah, we can do your brewery, but we can do it in the fall. Well, we're not moving in the fall, we're moving in the spring. So a lot of it we had to kind of do on our own. And, we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Did you have to buy new equipment for the space, or was it everything from the old spot?
Everything's from the old place, the original equipment. So that stuff's 20 years old now, but it's stainless steel. It's not a lot to it, so it still works fine. I mean,
Right.
people in Europe are brewing on systems that are 100 years old.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's not a big deal. We did get some extra tanks, so that gives us the extra capacity. So we'll have more variety. So we have 20 barrel fermenters, but we don't always brew 20 barrels of a certain style of beer. So we have some 10 barrel fermenters, which allows us to do smaller batches.
Okay. And you're the brewmaster. Do you have a crew back there, or is it just you?
It's me and a part-time assistant.
Okay, got it. Brian, what's on the horizon this summer? What's happening? And are you making any changes now that you've had you're settled in? Would that be a safe thing to say?
Yeah. I would say that we're probably about 90% of where we want to be.
Okay.
Decor-wise, atmosphere-wise, beer-wise, menu-wise, event-wise. So, certainly way, much better than it was, 6 months ago. The first 3 months were kind of a whirlwind for all of us.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of settled into a pretty good flow right now.
Okay.
Summer we should be at full scale with all the beer. So that'll allow us to do some other things that we haven't been able to do in the past year or so in terms of festivals and beer events and things like that. So that's kind of exciting. We're full on to our kind of our weekend music schedule. So we're doing live music every Friday and Saturday night, no cover charge, and that's kind of brought a vitality to the nighttime crowd that we haven't had in a couple years, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a different setup, obviously across the street. What what are the primary differences between Amber Room and what you have going now?
Well, across the street, we basically had two competing bars, and the bands played upstairs, and we were kind of dependent on the bands to bring people because we didn't really have a built-in audience. And although we had the stage and the sound and everything, you were asking people to go to a separate room, pay a cover charge, and the bands had to bring the people in.
Right.
Here we've got a great built-in crowd, so really all we're asking the bands to do is for sure bring some people.
Sure.
But it's more about being interesting and being good and being easy to work with. So we're doing a lot less kind of traditional cover bands and getting into more original music, blues. We had a bluegrass band on Saturday night, an awesome blues band on Friday night.
That's great.
So it's keeping the interest level up, and what we found out is people just like good music. They don't necessarily need to know every song that they're
Right.
playing as long as it's good.
Right. And you're pretty heavy into social media. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy on that, or how you use it, how you leverage it.
I think what we found was, because we don't have this endless advertising budget, is Facebook and Twitter and things like that. Your website, it's kind of free, and if you can bring people into the fold on that, and the way it kind of increases exponentially is people tag you and recommend you and share you. We're getting the word out on what we're doing, and it's a bar restaurant with videos and pictures and beer and bands and food. We're kind of lucky in that,
Right.
social media, we benefit from it. We can be interesting and funny and quirky. We're not an insurance firm. It's harder for them to drive traffic to their site.
Right.
So we continue to explore new opportunities in social media and just try to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
I think that generation that's driving craft beer right now is heavily into social media. I mean, they have beer apps and
Yeah.
ratings websites, and it's a big deal for that
I have a friend
generation.
who has an app, and he logs in every beer that he drinks,
Yeah.
and it shoots out graphs
Yeah.
and all sorts of different things about, and he
If
gets
you
to
see
rate
somebody,
it.
if you see somebody come in here and they have a flight of beers and their smartphone out, it's one of those guys.
Here we go. Here we go.
So that's the front room. What about the back room? Are you doing more corporate stuff, or
Yeah,
how's
well-
that grown? What are you doing back there?
Actually, so when we moved over here and we decided to do the music actually in the dining room bar area to really play in front of the whole spot, there were two reasons. One was, let's put the bands in front of the people, and the second one's across the street. They're really conflicted with the private parties. So now the back room, which holds upwards of 275, strictly it's banquets. We don't have to worry about that kind of crossing over and getting in the way of the bands or vice versa.
Right.
So we do daytime corporate events, nighttime corporate events, private events. We're doing a lot more weddings, boutique style weddings,
Cool.
mitzvahs, anniversary parties, memorials.
Yeah. The list goes on.
Yeah, and there's just not a lot of places down here that can offer the full scale audio video, which we have, and have that kind of capacity in terms of people, and then still be in beautiful downtown Libertyville.
Right. Right. How is the parking thing is a big topic related to all the restaurants in town. I mean, just generically speaking, what do you think of the scene in Libertyville? Too many restaurants, not enough? Is the parking overblown? I mean, you got more parking than you ever had now. It's more convenient for us to come in to Mickey Finn's than I've ever experienced. So talk a little bit about the Libertyville scene in general.
I think it's always been a great downtown for the suburbs. I mean, some suburbs have nothing going on downtown.
Yeah,
Just
that's
has
for sure.
restaurants. I mean, we have a great beer bar, the Firkin. We have a great brew pub. So that right there, two great beer places. There's a craft beer store just opened up the
Yeah.
street here.
Home brewing store down the
Yeah,
street.
home brewing store. So if you're a beer geek, Libertyville is a great place.
Yeah. How about you, Brian? What do you think?
I think at this point in time, even with the explosion of all the new restaurants, I don't think we're at a saturation point because most of the new places have been pretty interesting and different than what we had. And I think as a Libertyville business owner, restaurant owner, that's all you ask. You hate a Me Too business or somebody just kind of coming in to kind of ride the coattails of what's been going on before that. But so far, everybody's been pretty interesting in doing something pretty different. I love the fact that you can come to Libertyville and it's, there's very few towns that have the history that we do, 150 years old, and are still as vital and interesting as Libertyville is. and is easy to get to. I mean, you can literally take the train from Fox Lake or downtown, or the suburbs in between, come down here, hit a couple different bars, a couple different restaurants, see live music, and there's awesome shops. So that's pretty cool. I would say the caveat is, as you add more restaurants and bars, they draw people, and they draw a lot of people at specific times during the day. Lunchtime, at night between 5 and 7. It's unlike retail where people kind of trickle in and drive there throughout the day. So this, as a 150-year-old town, it's not necessarily set up to handle that amount of traffic.
Yeah, the infrastructure's not there.
The worst thing we could ever hear, and we do hear it at times, is, "Oh, I won't go to Libertyville on Friday night. There's nowhere to park." So the more restaurants we add, unless we address those parking issues, could eventually kind of harm what we're trying to do here. But I do know the village is addressing it, and yeah, we're certainly in a better situation than we were across the street. We have way more parking now,
Right.
but more parking is better than less parking.
Yeah. Well, the Main Street organization, I think, as we moved into town about 8 years ago, and I grew up in Zion, so I was familiar with Libertyville, and it's certainly not the Libertyville that I grew up, visiting. The Main Street organization seems to have just done a really great job as far as creating some sort of vision. I don't know if that's all Main Street or there were some local businesses that played a huge part in that. I don't know the players all that well, but boy, oh boy, the planning and some of the foresight, I think, was pretty good. Would you guys agree with that? Or?
Oh yeah, I mean, Main Street was set up, I think in the 80s, and their charter is basically to keep these great historic towns vital. And with strip malls and mega malls and discount malls, there's a lot of temptation to, for people to take their money outside of the town that they live in.
Right.
And Main Street does a great job of working with the village and the restaurants and the retail outlets to kind of keep it vital. And I think they have hundreds and hundreds of volunteers that help out residents. And I think there's probably 20 different, probably more, events over the course of the year with the sole purpose of just bringing people to the downtown.
Right.
Now, on those specific days, maybe it doesn't help the restaurant or necessarily help the retail event. There's a bunch of events for different things, but as residents and people from outside Libertyville come in, they can see how much is going on here, and it's a great advertisement for the town. And it's
a lot of energy.
Yeah, and it's you got to keep working every day, because every town is trying to become more vital. Every town is adding more restaurants and high-end retail. So, but we have a great base, and it's a great organization.
Yeah. Going back to the beer thing, are you guys fans of the craft festivals? What do you do along those lines, if anything? I know you've participated in the North Shore Festival. It was
Beer, Wine, Cigar. At
Yeah,
Grano.
yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately that's gone, although I think they moved it to Lamb's Farm. That was a great festival, great location.
I think our angle on the whole thing is we're not a big fan of like cash grab beer events, and there's a lot of those you see probably more in the city where they're just trying to get brewers to come down there with their beer, sometimes pay you, sometimes not pay you, but they're looking for a big payday. They charge the public $30 or $40. It's all you can drink. It kind of gets away from what the point of it is.
Yeah, right.
So we kind of stay away from those, and we try to stick more with either the regional ones that really have a great reputation, or it's local. It's in Grays Lake, or it's in Mundelein, or it's in Highwood, or it's in Libertyville.
Right.
And we don't have a ton of staff, to also be doing these things every weekend.
Yeah. You need a lot of staff for that.
Yeah.
So we go where our
Saturday.
customers come from, and since we're not distributing right now, we're really focused on the beer here. So if that can help us, we're interested in it.
Are you guys ever going to distribute? I know you had the 12-pack cans. Do you still have that, or any plans to distribute out?
Yeah. We since we don't have the capacity to do it in house, we contract brew. Basically, take our formula and our recipe, and then we'll take it to a bigger brew house. And once we approve what they've done, we'll let them bottle it and or can it and distribute it for us. We just haven't had the opportunity with the move the last year to kind of concentrate on that. But it is one of the things we hope to get back into.
That's great. All right, Brian, who's doing it right as far as other restaurants are concerned? You cook at home? You go out to eat once in a while?
Yeah.
You and Jetta have a favorite place?
Yeah. Well, in town here, I think Firkin and Tavern do a great job.
Okay.
And they've been consistent and relevant and interesting. We've got a new restaurant called Milwaukee Trace. That's awesome. It's very different. Small plates, really interesting cocktails, cool atmosphere.
Yeah, it is cool.
But then, we've got like our favorite, Mambo Italiano and Mundaline. It's kind of old school, traditional Italian. They do a fabulous job. We got great Italian in Libertyville too.
Yeah.
But there's lots to choose from up here, indeed.
Yeah, that's great. Tell us a little bit about the building. These rafters are amazing. I understand this was a car dealership at one point.
Yeah, so when we decided that we're going to move back in 2010, 2011, we started looking at buildings, and it's crazy that the coolest, most interesting, and most efficient building we found was literally right across the street. This building is kind of a hidden gem. Most people that drove by it before we did the facade change didn't know where it was. They said, "Where are you guys moving?" I said, "We're moving right next to Love and Oven." I can't picture it. And it basically had a drive-it front and a green awning that had been there since the 80s, and it was just,
Right.
you drive by it. And when we walked through it and realized that the building had, brick walls and an open roof line, rafters and wood ceiling, we're like, this is awesome. So it really became a big kind of demo and restoration project rather than a building project. And it just laid out perfect for what we needed. We wanted a big long bar, we got it. We wanted a big banquet room, we got it. And we wanted a brewery that was, much bigger than we had, and we got it.
Was all this rafters under cover of? I'd never been in
Yeah,
this building.
it was under cover of a false ceiling, as in a loft.
Okay.
And then below that was your traditional drop ceiling tile.
Wow.
And we just tore it all down and cleaned it all up. And
So you knew all this stuff was up here before you bought it?
oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure, and that's one of the reasons we wanted it. We wanted a historical, interesting building, and we got it.
Yeah, you
Now,
did.
not everybody loves the wide open floor plan. That's probably been the biggest criticism we've heard. But the building is open, and we just wanted to kind of be true to the building. It was built in 1917, so it's got a lot of historic elements to it. It was a car dealer in the 40s and 50s.
Okay.
It was the Independent Register, the Libertyville newspaper in the 60s and early 70s, and most recently Condell had it for their office space and
Okay.
administrative offices. And when Advocate bought Condell, they didn't need it anymore, so it basically sat underutilized for about 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what inspired the garage doors? It's a great feel in here when the doors and the windows are wide open. Tell us a little bit about the design process with that. Were there key players that gave you ideas, or where'd you draw inspiration from?
Well, I think we've all been to places either downtown or and in my case, I think I was in Charleston, and I saw how many places would completely open up at certain times, and the garage doors really fit in here based on the history and how we converted the parking spaces to outdoor dining, and it was just kind of a no-brainer. And yeah, it's cool when you get the right weather, we can open this place up.
Yeah.
It kind of brings the outside in, and when you're outside, you kind of feel like you're inside.
And with, geographically, that's so critical around here because we cherish the summer months. They're pretty short.
They're short,
They're
yeah.
pretty
It's a short season.
And having the ability, and it seems like that's a theme going throughout Libertyville.
Yeah.
Milwaukee Trace has a big
Yeah, garage door.
garage door opening. It's pretty cool. I think Chili U has that too. Or
Yeah,
something?
they've got kind of a innovative door system. It's not necessarily a garage door, but they can open up pretty wide.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for
no problem.
taking
Thank
the
you.
time to chat and
Thanks, Jim.
Pleasure.
give us some background on what's happening at Mickey Finn's.
Absolutely.
That's a wrap. Head it away, man.
Yeah.